Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Building Your Year-End Giving Strategy Before September. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We're excited to have leaders, operators, and change makers from across the museum community with us. My name is David. I will be your moderator today. I am part of the team at Vivard, an all-in-one CRM platform built specifically for museums and cultural institutions. Vivard helps museums bring together fundraising, ticketing, memberships, finance, retail, CRM, and reporting all into one single source of truth so that teams can move beyond silos and operate with clarity, agility, and confidence. Our work focuses on helping museums strengthen their operational foundations so that they can spend less time managing their systems and more time advancing their mission. So before we begin, there's a question I'd like to ask everybody. When do you think your year-end fundraising campaign actually begins? November? Giving Tuesday? December? One might argue that it might be already too late. The most successful museums begin planning months before the first fundraising email is ever sent. Because year-end giving isn't one during the holidays, it's one in the months leading up to them. In today's session, we're going to explore why most successful year-end fundraising campaigns begin in November, that they don't begin in November, that they begin months earlier with thoughtful planning, donor segmentation, and a strategy that helps museums build stronger relationships while maximizing year-end giving. I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled to be joined today by our guest, Fred Gold. Fred is a museum development and advancement professional with decades of experience helping cultural institutions strengthen fundraising programs, grow donor engagement, and build sustainable philanthropic revenue. Throughout his career, he has worked alongside museums to improve annual giving, memberships, major gifts, and donor stewardship strategies. Fred, we are grateful to have you with us today. I'll turn things over to you to help frame today's conversation around what's building your year-end giving strategy before September means to you. But before we begin, a few housekeeping and guideline items. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with all registrants after the webinar. Please keep your microphones muted during the presentation to avoid background noise. We encourage questions we encourage questions throughout the session. Please use the Q&A or chat, as we'll address as many as possible during the Q&A portion at the end of the webinar. This is intended to be a practical and candid conversation, not a sales presentation. Please be respectful of the differing perspectives and experiences as institutions are at different stages of their operational journey. With that, Fred, thank you for joining us. Let's begin. This is our agenda today. What you'll learn, we already went through the welcome and introduction, why September matters, building the foundation, smarter donor segmentation, creating a communication calendar, increasing gifts through the matching campaigns, reducing manual work with automation, putting it all together, and closing and Q&A, as mentioned earlier. So as I mentioned, Fred, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you being here. Why year-end giving starts before September? Fred, before we dive in, why do you think year-end funding is such a critical time for museums?
That's a great question, David. I'm glad you asked. So we know that historically about 40% of annual donations will occur during year end, however you define year end. For some organizations, that's Q4. For some organizations, that's November and December. But that sort of holiday Q4 season, the vast majority of your giving is going to come in. And what that means is there's the most activity in your philanthropic pipeline. And that is when you have the best opportunity to move people within your philanthropic pipeline, whether that's an increase in their giving amount, acquiring them as a first-time donor, moving them out of your sort of annual giving pipeline and into major giving, whatever it might be. That's why it's so critical that you work within this year-end timeline.
So on that, though, what do you think, attendees are going to walk away with today from this webinar?
My hope is that they'll walk away with a roadmap. So as annual giving professionals, individual giving professionals, we all understand what it's like to feel behind the curve. And there will definitely be those campaigns where you feel behind the curve in your career. At one point, I had a CEO walk into my office and say, "Hey, we peeled about $10,000 off of our summer camp program to cover an HVAC repair. Can you raise that by next month for us?" Well, and that was a CEO. So I said, give it a shot? Sure. Um, and I was behind the curve there and I felt like it. If your year-end campaigns feel that way every year, it means you're starting too late. It's really critical that you start early on. I like to give like 5 to 6 months for a campaign. Uh, and it will extend, that timeline will extend if you're working with huge campaigns, right? The largest campaign I ever sent had 128 segments in it. That one I needed
Yeah.
4 months of print lead time.
Yeah,
Like so I had to be way ahead of the curve there.
you did. And so so on that note, like why is September really the point where museums have should have their year-end campaigns ready to go?
In my experience, September's the break point. So July and August, and this timeline is a great representation of it. In July, if you start the planning, and August, you start that sort of internal segmentation work, the infrastructure surrounding your campaign. Then come September, you'll feel really well prepared to get everything ready, build those campaign assets, set up the landing pages, do all those things. So that then in October, November, and December, you're just executing. And sure, you'll run a suppression list against your recipient list late in the campaign. That's fine. By all means, do that. But you don't want to be in October thinking, now what segments should I run for this campaign? Because then you're going to feel behind the curve. Annual giving and campaign management is all about project management. And so what I am hoping that you come out of this webinar with is a really thorough understanding of the timeline you need to build into managing this project.
Amazing. So what are the most common mistakes I think museums make during this time frame? Is it waiting? Is that the big one, or what do you think is the biggest? Maybe it's segmentation to donors. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's another great question. So I think the biggest mistake that museums make, I'll say waiting, but waiting isn't really the right term, right? Like nobody is in July and August thinking about their end of year campaign saying, you know what? I'll deal with that in October. Like that feels like a good time to start. Nobody is thinking that.
Yeah.
What they are thinking is, hey, this has to get done, but you know what? I've got other really critical priorities that I need to get done first. So, quite honestly, I think it's less of a waiting issue and more of a resources issue.
Gotcha, gotcha. And then so when you're planning a campaign, where should museums probably start? What's your thoughts on that?
They should start with the planning, like start at the end. So when you are sitting here, right, where it's July 29th, so when I am thinking to myself, okay, in January 15th, 2027, what do I want to have achieved with this Q4 appeal? The answer to that question is where you need to start planning your appeal. And that really gets to your campaign goals. So if it's a revenue goal, right? If you say, man, we operate on a calendar year fiscal and I need to raise $25,000 with this Q4 appeal to hit my goal. That's fine. That's a good goal to have. If it's a participation goal, if you are targeting new donors, new donor acquisition, that's fine. Like whatever goal makes sense for your organization, that's where you need to start.
Awesome. And so when you're basically when that happens, what's one like planning task that often gets overlooked while you're doing this?
I think the planning task that often gets overlooked is building the calendar. So
But
everyone will have in their mind, like, oh, okay, we have, let's say, 6 emails going out for this appeal. And in
Right.
your mind, you're going to know when you want those 6 emails to drop. Put it on paper, put it on a calendar, aim for a week of the calendar, put it on Monday. You'll probably get it out on Friday. That's okay. Aim for that week and get it on paper so that the people who need to review it can review it, so that you're well ahead of the curve, um, so that you don't all of a sudden wake up one day and be like, oh, it's October 15th. I was supposed to get an email out last week, right? Like, you don't want to have those things that come up impact your calendar. So get it on paper, get it scheduled, set it in stone.
So should you be really strong on the calendar, just like maybe detailing exactly what piece of like content should be going out, or like is it like social media, donations, reporting, all of that? Like it should be all like organized in that level. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah. So right, I I mentioned project management.
Yeah,
Project management is all annual giving is. You are, as an annual giving fundraiser, you are responsible for pipeline development because annual giving is never going to be transformative to your organization. It's going to help keep the lights on. It's going to help keep camps running. It's going to help do those sorts of really critical things for your organization. But it is never going to be the thing that drives your organization forward. Your
gotcha.
goal as an annual giving professional is to build the pipeline to the next transformative major gift. So, as you do that, you have to send these appeals to help build out that pipeline. And that means you need to know, probably by the end of August, what pieces are you going to send with this appeal? Who are you going to send them to? Why are you going to send them? What is the theme of the messaging that you're sending? And so just like hammer all that out in July and August so that you know what you have to send, you know what assets you need to create, and put them in a calendar so you know when you need to send them.
Perfect. And then kind of going into the next level, which is what you mentioned a little bit earlier, is segmentation. So why doesn't sending one message to everyone work anymore? Like, what is that? Like, how does that play out?
Well, so here's what I'll say. Sending one message, right? You pull all of the constituents in your database, you have one letter, they're all going to receive the same letter. That works just as well now as it ever did. The problem is, it never worked very well. And that's because every individual person in your database, every person in your community has a very different relationship with your organization.
Right.
You do have people in your museum community who maybe they've come to your museum, maybe they've seen your exhibits once or twice, but you know what? They probably really love your retail offerings. They love your museum store. And so that may be the only place they really interact with you.
Right.
So then an appeal that says, hey, help us get these summer camps up off the ground and running. That's not going to land as well as if you send that appeal about summer camps to somebody whose children have been attending your summer camps for the last 5 years.
So it sounds like everything is like the more personalized you can get and knowing the individuals as you're segmenting this out probably gets you the best engagement, I'm assuming. Is that
Yeah,
that
yeah, that's
kind
that's
of match?
100% true. And so this slide is actually really great. These 5 segments are the 5 segments that I sort of start with as a baseline. So every institution I've ever worked, these 5 segments have been the bare minimum of segmentation that I need to do for an appeal because all these donor types um, are going to respond to different messaging. So this is wonderful. Like I said earlier, the largest campaign I ever sent had 128 segments. We started with this and then we layered in different data out of the CRM. So giving history is a great one. Um, Giving history affects your segmentation in 2 ways. One, every ask should be different for every individual in your segment. So if somebody has been consistently giving to you for 2 years, it's time to ask them for an upgrade. So if they've given you the same amount or in the same amount band, right? If you have your giving bands at, $20 to $50 and somebody's been giving $20 to $50 for 2 years consistently, it's time to ask them for an upgrade. Ask for that $50 to $100 gift. Okay.
Yeah.
Similarly, if it's 2,000 to 5,000 and they've been giving 5,000 every year for the last 2 years, great. Ask for 7,500, right? So giving history affects the ask and also the messaging. If you tell somebody who's been giving to, like, let's say you have someone regularly who's giving to your educational programming.
Hmm.
Every year they give to your educational programming.
Right.
Don't send them an appeal for something that's not the educational programming because they're not going to respond as well to that. They don't want to fund your next really cool exhibit, your next traveling exhibit. They may not argue, like they may say that like, yeah, that is going to be great for the community, but that's not where my philanthropic priority lies.
Right. Right.
So I'm not going to give as much to that.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
layer in the giving history, layer in how many times someone has attended every year, right? If I receive a letter from a museum that I visited 7 times this year and they say, "Hey, did you know you visited 7 times this year? You're in the top 1% of returning visitors." They're getting a gift. Like that is just,
Yeah, and it sounds like it basically motivates each supporter too, right? So
yeah,
that's what it sounds like. I mean, understanding those piece like that data from your CRM really supports that, like how often that they're coming in and what that looks like to drive that type of engagement. Amazing.
yeah.
Okay, great. So from here, like how often, so kind of moving into the communication piece of it, we talked about the calendar earlier, but like, making sure that, as you can see here, most campaigns fail because they communicate too little, right? Um, so on that, how often should museums or cultural institutions communicate during the year, like during year end stuff? You know what I mean? Like, is when's too early, when's too late? You know what I mean? So, what's your thoughts around that?
More.
More.
Just,
Okay,
choose a number, whatever number you're communicating, and add two. Send two more communications. All
gotcha.
right. Like
Okay,
I've never been someplace that has sent too much messaging.
gotcha.
I've
Okay,
never worked with an organization that sent too much messaging. Certainly, you'll have some donors, you'll have some constituents who reply and say, "Man, you are just flooding my inbox."
yeah.
As an annual giving professional, if you do not receive hate mail after an appeal, you have done your appeal incorrectly. Somebody is going to dislike it. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's just another touch point for that particular
But I think
constituent.
in some ways though, I think that there may be, like you said, there may be some level of like probably, hey, it's maybe a little too much, but at the same time, I think it's better than not receiving anything. And after you've given, or if that any type of campaign or anything that you've done really kind of plays like, I think better that you're talking to them rather than not talking, obviously. So for obvious reasons. So in this though, like when you're looking at this, like what channels do you think should be, museums and cultural institutions prioritize? Like, what do you think like would be best? Like, what are the best channels you think? Like, I know things are moving kind of fast in the digital world, with AI and all this stuff. Like, what do you think is like something that really kind of hits home for you and your
Uh, I think so. The different messaging you need to send affects the channel that is most important. So if you are actually soliciting and making an ask, email and direct mail are going to be the most critical pieces, and direct mail the most critical piece. I know people say direct mail is dying. It's not.
Yeah.
Like there is that contingent of people who will always give via direct mail. In addition, there is a group of people who will always need a reminder and whose email inboxes are just swamped already with spam. So that direct mail piece will remind them. Direct mail is not going anywhere. It is your best outreach channel.
Yeah,
So
and
if
on that, sorry, Fred, not to cut you off, but
no,
on that front, like receiving a letter, I think in the mail that seems somewhat personalized to the individual. I know I get that sometimes from like, different like whenever I donate or if I'm, or even a realtor hits me up, like would be like, comes in and it's very personalized. I'm more likely to open it up and feel, hey, this person cares about me and this person or this institution cares about who I am as a person. So I can totally see that, overall. So
Yeah, and I'll also say like yes, direct mail is also the most expensive channel you have as
yeah,
an annual giving professional. That is true. One of the one of the ways in which I've mitigated that in the past with other campaigns is to look at my CRM, look at all the data I have, and say, okay, who responds to direct mail?
right.
Who has given in response to direct mail appeals before? Who's in the age group that I would typically expect would respond to a direct mail appeal? Those
That's
people
yeah.
get a letter. Everyone else gets email because email is the cheapest way to reach out to someone directly. And then social media and your website really serve to amplify your theme and your messaging, right?
Yeah.
So if your appeal is your end of year appeal is, hey, we helped 100,000 students this year come in to our programming. They all got scholarships, or 25% of them got scholarships. Next year, we want to raise that 25% to 40%. Can you support that? That's great. That can be your solicitation via email and direct mail. On your social channels and your website, start telling those stories. Talk about a student who came in on scholarship and what that meant to them, what it will mean to their future development and their growth as a human being and a community member. That's where social and website really serve to amplify the messaging around your appeal.
I totally agree with that. I definitely think like that personalization really kind of plays into it and knowing how like as people grow in there are different stages of their life cycle, like they're definitely going to have different areas that are going to appeal to them at different stages as they get older. And as you're nurturing those opportunities, like it becomes more important. I can totally see that. Um, so matching gift strategies, why are matching gift campaigns so effective? I know it's a pretty standard question there, but want to get your thoughts around that. Yeah.
Yeah, matching gift strategies work, and they work really well. I don't know why. I can't tell you. There's something psychologically in people that says, when a deadline is approaching, they want to take action. When they think they have the opportunity to do something really cool, they want to take action. And when you combine those two things, like saying, hey, we have this match available until tonight at midnight, and hey, you can double the impact of your gift. You can help two kids get scholarships to summer camps instead of just one, or you can help us acquire two artifacts instead of one, like whatever that might be. Like the idea that, hey, you can have that level of impact, like more than you normally would, and you can do it while like you have to do it within this specific time frame. That just works, man. I don't
Yeah.
It's a psychological thing
Well,
for people.
is there a good time or when should like museums use a matching campaign? Is there like when is the best time to do that?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, the urgency is really important. And it's similar to like sales, right? Like you go to a store and the store has a sign in the window that says BOGO today only or something like that, right? That's a sale and people want to take advantage of it right now because it's their only opportunity. It's a similar thing with matching gift strategies. And so if you can raise a matching gift, or actually what I've done and what I've had success with in the past is not raising matching gifts, but asking a specific major donor, hey, can we use your existing gift or your existing pledge, which you are already planning to give, as a matching gift marketing tool? Typically, they'll say yes because for that major donor, they get the opportunity to double their impact.
Right.
So then you can say, okay, great. Well, David Hiltner gave us this $25,000 contribution. He's agreed to allow us to use it as a matching gift. So for the next 24 hours, up to $25,000 will be matched,
Amazing.
right? So you do that, you create this match, have a very tight timing window.
And
So
yeah. And for those
if
on the call, please do not email me for a $25,000 donation. But I will be happy to review it. But yeah.
so yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to throw you out there, David.
No, no, I know
But
there's a lot of that. I know we have a lot of museums on the call today, and I'm sure I'll be getting emails right after this. So
yeah.
it's
So the
part of the
timing is
strategy.
important,
Yeah, yeah,
the impact is important, and what we found, and statistically, there's been a lot of research done around matching gift strategies, is that first-time donors are more likely to come in using a matching gift, and it encourages larger gifts. People who love your organization, love your institution, but ordinarily would give a certain dollar amount are willing to stretch their gift more when there's a matching gift involved. So all of that combines to make matching gift strategies really important.
okay. Automation. So where can automation kind of make the biggest difference for fundraising teams?
It's a great question. Automation is really critical for fundraising teams because our role as fundraisers, specifically as annual giving fundraisers, is philanthropic pipeline development to
Gotcha.
get to a major gift. Other fundraisers, right, like a major gift officer, principal gifts officer, uh, chief advancement officers, right? Those roles are a little bit different. But for us in particular in annual giving,
Yeah.
it is possible for us to go to work in the morning, sit down at our desk, open up Excel, and never leave Excel or our desk for the rest of the day. That's just the nature of annual giving. The problem is when you're doing that sort of like statistical analysis, that kind of project management piece, which is really critical to your role, it becomes easy to do that and not actually be fundraising.
Yeah.
So the automation is critical to remove a big portion of that admin work. Things like we have here, sending reminder emails, sending donor acknowledgement letters, sending follow-up messages and thank you emails. That's all really critical work that you can automate. And you can also use automation, if you're working in a mainstream CRM, you should be able to essentially flag your constituents who need to be flagged. So if somebody makes a first-time gift to one of your appeals, you should be able to log in the next day and have a little notification that says, hey, this person made a first-time gift. You should be able to personalize the messaging in your acknowledgement emails and your thank you emails. All of that should be able to uh, automate. It should be able to be automated for your constituents, and the constituents shouldn't realize that. You
Yeah.
should be able to schedule communications, track engagement. The alerting staff to high value prospects is critical, right? Because we're philanthropic pipeline professionals, the last part of our work with a given constituent is handing them off to a major gift officer. And so you need to know who needs to be handed off to a major gift officer, and you need to do that quickly because those relationships grow cold really quickly. And I guarantee you are not the only person courting that donor for a major gift. So it's really critical that you have some way to alert you and automate that process.
Yeah, and I think like with the, as AI is getting bigger and bigger, I think that that'll also help with the messaging and kind of build that out and make it easier for that type of automation to be more seamless, I think, in a lot of ways. So, and I think that that's going to make it where instead of, you can do more testing probably and start doing more like seeing what is driving more opportunities, I think, at the end of the day. So that's all fantastic. And does automation, do you think like, does it make fundraising feel less personal to a degree? Yeah.
Bad automation does. So here's right, and here's an example. So I have received acknowledgement letters addressed to Dear Fred Gold. Like
Yeah.
that's the salutation, right? Dear Fred
Right.
Gold. And
Yeah.
I know that
Immediate.
that
Yeah.
yeah, so someone has
Yeah.
essentially just mail
Yeah.
merged the wrong field. I
Right.
get it.
Right.
It's happened to me too.
Yeah.
That's fine. It
Yeah.
happens. the ideal is somebody never can pinpoint a specific thing that says this came from a process that's built.
Right. Right.
And the the old saying is it old? I don't know. But the saying is, you will fail to the level of your processes. So if your process fails, that is what breaks your campaigns. That's
Yeah.
what breaks your donor stewardship. So
Right.
you need to build out the process that makes your stewardship, your campaign engagement
Right.
feel really natural and personalized. And for some organizations, that might be like automatic flags on a record that a human being then opens up and reviews and says, oh, yeah, you know what? David Hiltner gave that $25,000 2 days ago. It's time for me to call him and say thank you. Totally fine.
Yeah.
Um, for other organizations, it's fully automated and it's, hey, we're going to send this thank you for your first gift email to everyone who donated to our Q4 campaign. It's going to go January 15th. It's going to have this messaging and talk about this impact.
Yeah.
And that's great. Either one of those are really valuable ways to use automation that will help you as a fundraiser still do your job and still build those relationships and build that philanthropic pipeline without feeling cold to the constituent.
And then finally putting it all together, right? This is like how we like if there's one thing to remember from this webinar, like what would it be like for you?
Yeah, I think the one thing to remember is start early. Start earlier than you think you need to,
Yeah.
um, because that's really what's going to give you the time to think through all of these individual pieces, right? What assets do I need to build? What messaging do I need to send? What theme will my constituents respond to? How do I need to segment my donors? All of those things are questions that require real thought and real effort being put into them. So start early. That's the one thing I would say if you're going to take anything away, start early.
Start early. The key ingredient for
Yep.
everybody. Yeah, so and then on that note, like if someone hasn't, because I know I talked about this earlier when I said if you're like I kind of started the question and said, hey, if you haven't started already, you're probably already behind. So if someone hasn't been planning yet, it's July, 29th. We're 2 days away from August. If someone hasn't started planning yet, what is the first thing they should probably do tomorrow?
The first thing they should do tomorrow is define their campaign goals.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
actually, I think the next slide really
Okay.
hits that
There you go. Yep.
wonderfully.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go.
So the first thing you need to do, define your campaign goals. What do you want to do? Is it just raise money? Is it raise donors, right? Get new donors in the door? Is it uh, have donors increase? Is it just to close that Libont-Cybont gap that you've got? Whatever that goal is for your organization, define it, put it on paper, get some buy-in from the rest of your fundraising team.
Makes sense. Yep.
And I actually think that the top two things in these two columns, identifying a matching gift strategy and defining your campaign goals, those are the two things that you ideally should have done by August. That gives you 2 days, get 20, 30, yeah, 2 days, get started. And if it takes through the end of August, so be it. That's totally fine. The rest of these, the segmentation, the automation, the calendar, get all that in place by the end of August, and you'll be in a really good spot to have a great Q4.
Fantastic. And if there's any advice for anybody joining us today, what would your advice be?
Ask other fundraisers.
Yeah.
Like if you're
Network,
building out your
talk. Yeah.
campaign,
Yeah. Yeah.
ask other fundraisers,
Yeah.
talk through your automation strategies, your theme, your messaging, your calendar. Fundraisers are helpful people. We all want to support each other. We all have different missions, so we're not exactly competing one on one with each other. So ask and we'll review it and see how we can help.
So on that note, I think you would probably, if anybody wanted to email you with any additional like questions or advice or anything like that, I'm sure you'd be open to that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Anytime, reach out. I'm happy to have a conversation.
Fantastic. So kind of going into the Q&A. So we do have a couple questions that I wanted to read to you before we close up shop here. The first question we have is many museums have donor data spread across fundraising, membership ticketing, and event systems. How important is it having all of that information in one place when planning a successful year-end campaign?
I would say it's really critical to have all of that information together because when all of that information is together, you are able to get a really clear picture of how a constituent relates to your organization. And like I mentioned earlier, when you think through your segmentation, each of your segments should address how the people in that segment relate to your organization. How do they feel about your museum? So the more of that information you can set together, and Vivart does that wonderfully. If you can build something on your own, more power to you and condolences, because I have done that and it is miserable work. The more of that information you can get together, the better off you will be.
Amazing. And then one other question that was brought up was with the emails that you send out or the direct mails, is there any like call to actions that you think are super important to make sure that is it ease of like maybe a QR code or something like that? Or is it like something, how is that like what's best practices around that?
Yeah, so there should always be a call to action,
Yeah.
and you want the call to action to be as easy as possible. So we know from essentially an e-commerce standpoint that the fewer clicks or taps if somebody's on their phone between choosing to make a gift and completing the gift, the better. So if you send a letter with a QR code, you want somebody to be able to scan that QR code and then essentially choose a dollar amount and click give.
Yeah.
Similarly, if there's an email, you want somebody to be able to click through a link and then select a dollar amount and give. And in an ideal world, the dollar amount is pre-populated based on the dollar amount that you have selected to ask them for, based
So
on
like,
your ask
yeah.
strategy.
So being is like probably going through an exercise to make sure, like even run it through yourself, probably find any type of friction points that there may be and try to eliminate that. It sounds like with the call to
Yeah.
action, right? So yeah, makes a ton of sense. And then last question I have here is you mentioned segmentation several times. How much does the quality of your CRM impact your ability to personalize year-end campaigns?
It is the only thing affecting your ability to personalize your campaigns.
Gotcha.
So you're right when you think through the way a campaign works, and this is basic. So if you've got a ton of experience, you're gonna hear this and be like, "Yeah, duh." If you don't, that's okay too. You need to hear this. Um, the way the campaign works, you write a letter and then you choose the areas in that letter where it makes sense to customize messaging for a given segment. And so that messaging you will write, and essentially you write the logic for the messaging. So you say, if somebody is a first time donor, they should see this sentence in this space. If
Gotcha.
somebody is a 5-year donor, they should see this sentence in this space. If somebody is $1,000 donor, they should see this sentence in this space of the letter, right? And so if you cannot extract from your database, is somebody $1,000 donor? Is somebody a brand new donor? Is somebody a member? Is somebody um, has somebody spent $100 in our retail offering in our shop?
Yeah.
If you can't see that information, then you can't adequately segment your data.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Fred. And like I said earlier, I'm sure you are available for any other questions or if you want to run anything by Fred, if you have any questions about that, I'm sure, like you said, I think it's the museum community is a community. We're all a part of this. Anytime we can help each other out, I think it's a super important opportunity for everybody. And I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us today. We hope that you found this session valuable. Be on the lookout for our next podcast. We do have podcasts called the Cultural Animals Museum Leadership Lab. It's hosted by our CEO, Antonio. where we speak with museum leaders about real business, operations, marketing, and development channels facing museums today. We'll also be hosting monthly webinars. We have one next month, I believe, that we're working on right now, and sharing ongoing thought leadership at Vivart. If you'd like to join us or at least be part of our either our podcast or one of our webinars, please reach out to us. We'd certainly love to add you to our calendar, because again, this is about us sharing, and as we always say, sharing is caring, or at least my kids say that. So sharing is caring. So again, as a reminder, we will send out this webinar shortly to those who registered. But again, thank you for joining us, and thank you, Fred, for giving us
One
time. Yeah,
one more thing before
sure.
we go.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I saw this question come in via the Q&A late.
Oh,
I
okay.
apologize, but
Yeah.
the question is if you could give one piece of advice to a museum that's relying heavily on spreadsheets during year-end planning, what would it be? I'm going to give you two pieces of advice. One, stop, get a CRM, rely on the CRM. That's I fully recognize that's not feasible for many organizations right now. That's okay. Every organization is in a different space in its development. So my second piece of advice, standardize your spreadsheet headers and organization. So every single spreadsheet you're working with should have like constituent ID, name, address, and all of those fields should be in the same order across all of your spreadsheets. That will simplify the process of you essentially linking between the sheets and pulling data from sheet to sheet and doing all that stuff so that you can segment as heavily as you need to.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Thank you.
so
No, I
yeah,
love that. It's like when you get a haircut and the barber finally, like as you're getting off the chair, they do one or two more cuts right before to make you feel like, hey, you got a little bit more out of this. So thank you so much for answering that question. That's amazing. Thank you to everybody again for joining us today. And again, be on the lookout for our next webinar. We're super excited about it, and we'll go from there. Thanks again, Fred. Appreciate your time. Have
thanks
a good one.
everybody.
All right, take care. Bye bye.